barrel gonna...
Everybody, thank you, and welcome. And in today's incredibly topical show, Neil Armstrong walks on the moon, some angry cyclists, and I throw a sandwich out of the window. All that is to come. But first, Aston Martin has just launched a new car. And here's Richard Hammond to tell us all about it.
This is the new V8 Vantage. And, well, it's not an ugly car, is it? I mean, I'm not sure about this colour. You'd be on the phone to your doctor if your wee came out like this, but the shape itself is stunning. This is one of those superstar cars that leave a wake of dropped jaws and phone camera flashes. And as the smallest, punchiest, sportiest car in the Aston lineup, it's fast too. Go! 0 to 60 takes 3.5 seconds. Oh my God! Oh! You're not going to be embarrassed by 911 Carreras. Moron. Top speed, 195. But here's the thing. Astons have always been beautiful and fast in a straight line. But when you're making a sports car, that's the easy part. It was when you dug deeper under the skin into the areas you couldn't see that in the past they often came up short. The trouble is, the company's never had the money or the manpower of Porsche or Ferrari, and you could sense that in their cars. They just didn't feel as well made or well engineered as some rivals. That means they sold mainly to people listening to their hearts and not their heads. Because your heart says, I want an Aston, even when your head says that door doesn't fit properly. But this is 2018. Good looks and speed aren't enough if bits are coming off in your hand. This car can't be nice to drive for an Aston. It can't be well made for an Aston. It's got to be good, full stop. Yeah, in an AMG, this engine doesn't make this noise. In a Merc, it's all umpire bass, whereas Aston Martin have added some British gravel to the mix. So, it's handsome, quick, tuneful, and feels well built. But now we come to the acid test. How the new Vantage handles corners. So, let's see what's what. Begin! It's built on an all-new chassis, a shorter version of the one under the DB11. And it's the first Aston Martin to be fitted with an electronic diff, a very expensive but very valuable weapon of war. Then we come to the engine. It's a 4-litre V8. It has twin turbos. It makes 510 horsepower. This really is genius. Watch this. Keep going! Oh! Go, go! Try it now. Yeah, it works. This is in control of its power. It really is. It's been set up by a man who used to work at Suspension Masters Lotus. And you can tell.
Not get bogged down with what's German and what's not. The point is, okay, unlike the previous Vantage, that is way, way more than a pretty face. I mean, a lot more. But now let's find how fast Abby can get one around the Ebola drone. And already we're at the drop down into your name here. Working away there at that unusual and frankly stupid square steering wheel. Coming in wide for old lady's house, keeping it neat round there, and now the short squirt down to substation. The line.
It's exciting.
It does. It's like an old-fashioned racing car, moving around.
The old days.
It's a good-looking lap, that. Right, let's find out where it ended up on our lap board, shall we? Here we go. Look at exactly the same speed as a 911 GT3 RS.
Yeah, and when you think the Aston doesn't have a massive wing and scaffolding in the back, that is pretty impressive.
Very impressive.
Yeah, but never mind that. Look, it's no faster than a BMW M5.
Yes, but I think what that says, James, is the M5 is seriously quick.
Now, this year marks the 50th anniversary of the first landings on the moon, and I thought I should take a little celebratory look back at that truly historic mission.
James, this isn't a grand tour of whatever is in your head. You do know that.
No, but I promise there will be some cars in this film. Eventually.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
When President Kennedy made that speech to Congress in 1961, he gave the scientists at NASA a planet-sized headache. Nevertheless, the brains at NASA knuckled down and throughout the 1960s set about developing and testing the rockets and the technology that would be needed to crack this monumental nut. However, machinery on its own was not enough. Equally important to the success of the space program were the astronauts. Now, these men were generally of a type. They were fighter jocks and test pilots, and they were very familiar with moving around at very high speed. So, and I did promise we'd get some cars into this, when it came to moving around on the face of the Earth, there was one car they favoured above all others. The Corvette, America's premier sports car.
Away. Yes, John Glenn, holder of supersonic flight records and the first American to orbit the Earth, drove this. Rubbish. Easy. Ah.
Between the American astronaut and the Corvette started with Alan Shepard, the first American in space in 1961. And on his safe return to Earth, he was given a free Corvette by General Motors, a sort of medal for services to the country. By 1969, just inside Kennedy's deadline, NASA was ready to try landing some men on the moon. The astronauts chosen were Buzz Aldrin, who drove a Corvette, Neil Armstrong, who drove a Corvette, and Mike Collins, who drove a Beetle. Presumably that's why they left him in the command module and didn't let him walk on the lunar surface. And when I say Corvette, I mean this actual Corvette. This one. This was his. This is Neil Armstrong's Corvette. His hands were here, he looked at the instruments like that. He touched that. Neil Armstrong, the first person to set foot somewhere other than the Earth. Go!
Full throttle.
The owner of this car, when he realised what it was he'd found, decided not to restore it. He would leave it exactly as it was. He would just do enough to make it run. So he hasn't done the paint, he hasn't replaced bits in here. This is all exactly as he found it. There's patina on the bonnet there. There's a scuff bit on the door. It's real. Hello, Rev Counter. Neil Armstrong's looked at you, hasn't he? Oh, I think a Huey is coming. There's Mr. Huey, there's the evocative wump. Those are the two sounds of the 60s, aren't they? That wump and the sound of Neil Armstrong speaking from the moon. Neil Armstrong's Chevrolet Corvette. Love it. Love it. What an honour.
Hold on. What's gone wrong with astronauts?
They don't go to the moon anymore.
No. They used to be rock gods. I mean, if you think about it, they would drive their Corvettes into town, get hammered, get chlamydia, and the next morning they'd be upside down in a starfighter. Anyway, that's enough about space now. I want to move it on because I came into the office the other day and told these two that the Citroën C3 Aircross that I'd been driving was very good, and they said it wasn't.
Because it isn't.
Yes, it is, and I decided to prove that it is by doing one of those very thorough tests where we cover all the things that matter in a car of this type.
Oh, wait a minute. Is this going to be one of those stupid films where you do ridiculous tests to discover if a car can, I don't know, drive faster than itself?
No. This is the car in question. It's a 5-seater, front-wheel drive hatchback. Prices start at £14,720 and it looks rather funky, with those splashes of orange paint here and there. It's also easy to see out of because the windows are made from glass and all the controls fall easily to hand because they're on the dashboard or the steering wheel rather than under the carpet in the boot. Go. Oh, very, very quickly here. But you may be wondering what makes it so special. Well, to find out, I've decided to break the test down into segments so that all the important questions can be answered. To find out, we've come here to the banked Millbrook Bowl in Bedfordshire. Citroën say that because the quite small 1.2-litre 3-cylinder engine in this particular version of the Aircross is turbocharged, it produces 128 horsepower. And now it's time to see what that means in terms of top speed. And here we go. Go. For heaven's sake, I beg of you, drive fast. Fast. But can it do better? Okay, what I've done now is hooked up to the back end of a Bentley Bentayga. Now, this is a car with a top speed of 180 miles an hour. What it's doing is it's punching a hole in the air for me, and I'm driving along in a vacuum. So that should mean I go faster. Let's find out. Go. I love speeding. Oh, Truth, it's like being in Bluebird. My only worry is that I just saw a single magpie, and it is Friday the 13th as I do this. So now I'm going to ease out of this dangerous situation. Well, if the space is smaller than the aircross, then the answer is no. No. And with that sorted out, it's time for one of the most important tests a little car can face. To find out, I've come to Southampton Docks, where obviously I've been forced to wear a hard hat in case a ship lands on my head. Anyway, as you can see, the little car has been attached by rope to the enormous car transporter. Which I've just noticed has a face. It's Booty McBoatface. The challenge I'd come up with was to see if the 1-ton C3 could pull the 13,000-ton ship a distance of 25 metres. Right, now I should explain that my colleagues, May and Hammond, think this is a stupid test. They say the aircross only develops 151 torques and that isn't enough to pull a medium-sized child. I, however, disagree. Let's do this! Go. Oh, Christ, there's some elasticity in that rope. Ooh, hello. Why is it going backwards? This is a bit of a worry. Is that ship? The ship's going back. Look. The ship is going back. What? The situation's bad. As we reattached the tow rope, I wondered what had gone wrong. Why did he put his engines in reverse as a sort of amusing joke? I mean, he is Greek, the captain. We're not German. We didn't mess your economy up. With the rope reattached, we began the test again. Here we go. That's just clutch spin. Now it's just clutch. That's clutch. Traction control off. It's the only solution. Hang on. I think that ship is moving. I think we're getting further and further with each pull. No. The power and strength of the Citroen. That That is Boaty McBoatface admitting defeat. And with that sorted out, it was time to address the C3's practicality. To answer this, we've come to France, where an armed robbery is in progress.
Burglars anglaises avec visage horrible are maintenant making their escape in a red 1972 De Tomaso Pantera GTS.
Ouais, j'ai à vous, 5 par 5.
Oui,
Au-dessous et sautier. Right. Let's do this! Go! This is staggering. It is quite scary through here. All around the world, police forces normally have pretty good cars. The Americans have Crown Vics, Germans have BMs, Italians have Alphas. But France has always been a bit of a burgling free-for-all because you knew that you were only ever going to be chased by Inspector Clouseau in a diesel Renault Megane. Well, not today, because I'm in an Aircross and I've got a moustache. To make my life a bit tricky, the robber's Pantera wasn't standard. It had an all-aluminium 7-litre V8 producing 550 horsepower, 4 times more than I had. I caught up with them. Oh, heavens! Oh, damn it! It was beginning to seem that despite my best efforts, I wouldn't be able to catch the Pantera. But then, when all seemed lost, the Citroën played its trump card and didn't break down, whereas the Pantera reverted to type and did. There you go, son. Oh, God. He's using hair dye. Anyway, it's now time for the final test, the big one. The answer to the question I'm asked 5 or 6 times a day. Italy is a difficult country to invade because it's surrounded on 3 sides by sea and on the 4th by mountains. These mountains. The Alps. But back in 218 BC, a Tunisian general called Hannibal did cross those mountains using elephants to carry his gear. And what I want to know is, could he have used an aircross instead? I mean, obviously, the aircross wasn't invented 200 years before the baby Jesus, but if it had been, could he have used it? We know that the Citroën is powerful and torquey, but what really matters on a job like this is traction. Go. And that's where this knob down here comes in. It engages something called the grip control system, and that sounds like a gimmick, but it isn't. Oh my God! Yes, look at the little Citroën clawing away. No elephant could do this. I am zooming up here. God knows what sorcery the computers are using to keep me going here, but they are. With the sat-nav telling me Italy was just 2 miles away, I found another path. I'm past 2,000 meters here. Christ, if I go over the edge now. No. Oh no! car! So there we are, faster than itself at the test track, strong enough to pull a ship, big enough for the entire Jolly family and a horse, and better at invading Italy than an elephant. Really? What a machine. Happy little car. Very good.
Are you all right? In the head, I mean.
What do you mean?
We learned nothing.